Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to episode 12. Yes, 12. It's gone really quickly. Of Smallville, the saviour of Superman. And today we're talking about Tom Welling, the star of Smallville, our very own Clark Kent. And I think, for me personally, he's got to be up there with Christopher Reeve. 10 years of playing Clark Kent, playing the character that tells us the story of how a young man becomes a hero. It's an amazing story, spanning 10 seasons, 10 years. Every season is different, and we've got to talk about Tom. Tom come in. He'd done a few things. He was a model, but it was obvious from the pilot he was extremely very raw. Now, personally, I think they did really well with him in the pilot, but he was a raw young talent. And one of the most fabulous things was seeing him become a better and better actor, become a great director, and he really had the responsibility of playing this character. He never did anything in his real life to embarrass Clark Kent, to embarrass Superman, to embarrass the show. And really none of them did. I mean, okay, Sam Jones III kind of was in a bit of trouble, but mainly everyone on Smallville, knew their responsibility of being on this show, and they were in a cul-de-sac, really. They were literally shooting in Canada all the time. There's not much down there, and it was a great way to do it. I know some have criticised Smallville, where the producers and the writers work in Hollywood, but the shooting is in Canada. That never bothered me personally, but then I'm a viewer. So the production and the way they made the show really should have nothing to do with a viewer. But let's talk about Tom Welling. Tom became a better and better actor and very proficient. And if you think about all the things they asked from him, you think about all the performances, you think about the Red K episodes, you think about the two episodes with Ryan, who's a young boy with telepathic powers, and it ends up, when he returns in season 2, that he's actually got a brain tumour. And that's a special episode, because this is the episode that tells the viewer, even Superman can't save everyone. And Clark has to come to terms with that. He loves this young boy. He's like a brother to him. He could be a brother to him, right? But he's going to die. Clark tries so much in that episode to try and save Ryan. He tries to find a surgeon who can help. And they think the surgeon has helped. But ultimately, as I say, Superman can't save everyone. And that's the tragedy of this episode. And Tom's performance is brilliant. He really is a great version of the character. But Tom had a more challenging thing to do. Because in a film, I know in a film you don't have as long to develop your character. And I accept that. But Tom had a lot of meaty material. And it was amazing. Because even though he's not Superman in this show, his character, his personality, his performances show you the purity, the pure-heartedness of the character. And when I see Tom as Clark, you just think, I was constantly thinking to myself, yes, that's the expression Clark would say, that innocent, hurt, vacant expression sometimes of pain, of seeing someone do something cruel to someone else. And in the performance, Tom did it, and it was fabulous. It was a fabulous piece of casting, because Alan Miles knew that this guy never wanted to wear the suit, that he was very dubious of playing this character. He was very ambitious, Tom, at the time. Now, when you look at Tom's career now, he's done okay since Smallville, but it's difficult. You work on TV, people are snobbish, it's difficult to be successful in film. But he's been in a film with Tom Hanks, he's been in a film with Kevin Costner. That isn't bad, is it? I think Tom's become a very good actor, But you get typecast, people don't want to touch you, and that's the tragedy of being in this industry. But I hope that Tom wouldn't swap Smallville for anything. But as I said yesterday, when you're working on television, it's a factory. You're just speeding through everything, right? Trying to get to the schedule. So it's very difficult to look back and think, you know what? I did something great here. Now, the cast may just think it was a job, right? They may just think it's a job, it was that silly show. But to us, They gave us something special. And by the way, the cast are entitled to feel that way. It's just a job. I used to sell meat behind a deli counter. I didn't just sit there putting posters and collecting meat, did I? No, I wasn't passionate about the job. In fact, I hated the job. But the point is, art is a beautiful thing. And Smallville was a beautiful work of art. And Tom's performances, when you think about the Ultraman version of Clark, the alternate version in season 10, when you think of Bizarro, that was Tom. How many actors in TV today could be standing there playing a pure Clark Kent? And then on the opposite kind of editing sequence, you've got Tom as Bizarro. And Tom when he played Bizarro, he made his voice deeper. He was brilliant. Tom could really play evil. Tom was really good at it. And then you look at him playing Red K. Clark as well. Some amazing performances. I think I was most astonished by him because he was a raw young actor. There was no question. I mean, he was 24 years old. Let's not forget. So that it's not like we're talking. And there was kind of accusations with Tom that he's too old. You can tell he's old. You can see the Midnight Shadow. It's funny actually because Alan Miles always talked about how they tried to disguise the Midnight Shadow. I never really thought about his age. I think his acting was so good. This is the thing with Tom as well, and this proves what a great actor he is. When he played Clark, he played him as a teenager. The voice he puts on as Clark, because Tom's actually got a really deep voice if you hear him in real life. But as a 24-year-old, yeah, Mum, I love you, Mum. His voice was so... He took away that deep element of his voice. He made sure he sounded like a naive, innocent teenager through the voice. That's what made it believable. He was Clark Kent. And even though he refused to put the cape and the suit on right, he still had the character and the energy of Superman. He was saving people every week. He was fighting, mutants, meteor freaks every week, So he was doing the whole thing without wearing the suit. And the red jacket and the blue T-shirt were just amazing. And he looked amazing. Do you know what? Look, while the show was active, the non-wearing of the costume was never an issue. We all knew this was a pre-Superman story. We didn't need to see him in the costume. I still was disappointed in Tom because I think in the finale, and I know his stance of this show being never about Superman, no flights, no tights, and he had this thing where we should never see him close up as Superman. We saw him as Superman, but, not like we have in the films. And I understand his stance, but what I would say to Tom is, Tom, that in the series finale, you're becoming a character. I think it would have been okay to see you in the costume. I believe there were many reasons why he wouldn't do it. He didn't do it because I don't think maybe he felt it would hurt his career. I don't think it would have hurt his career. Once you do these things, you're typecast, and it's very difficult to get under that shadow. We know that from Christopher Reeve. I think Henry Cavill's doing quite well, actually. He's been able to play Superman in 3 films and play a multitude of other roles, and he's doing The Witcher. Who knows if he's still Superman? That's another subject for the DCEU Daily. This is Smallville, the saviour of Superman. But I think, I know a lot of people are angry with Tom for not wearing the costume, and I was a little bit miffed after the series finale. I have issues with the series finale because I felt the cast took over too much and got what they wanted too much. And it was more about the fans of the last 3 seasons, more about the shippers, than the fans who had stuck through this show through thick and thin. Also, I feel that Tom didn't exactly approve with the way Alan Miles ran the show near the end of their run. I don't know if that's true, but that's something for them. But let me be clear here, even though I don't agree with Tom for not wearing the costume, my respect level for him is sky high. Because he did a great job. He did a great job. He kept himself clean and pure outside of the job. And when you're playing Superman, and for me, it doesn't matter who else you're playing, but when you're playing Superman, when you're playing Clark Kent, it's important you have a reputation. I remember I've seen kind of film reels of George Reeves smoking in restaurants and stuff. Tom never did that. Who knows if Tom smokes? Who knows if Tom drinks? We all drink. I smoke, but he hid it. He kept himself clean. There's also this thing with Tom where he never used to do like Comic-Con and things like that until they made him a producer, and then he had no choice. Once you're a producer, you had to be there. You had to represent the show. Again, I'm not bothered. It would have been nice to see those things. But again, I didn't need Smallville promoting to me. I didn't need to be told, you better tune into Smallville this week. I was obsessed with Smallville. and I still am. So everyone who was watching Smallville was just watching it from their own free will. They didn't need to be manipulated from Comic-Con or conventions or marketing. Smallville was massive. And even when the ratings went down in the last, I'd say from season 4 or 5 onwards, it was still a very hugely viewed show. It was still a very popular show. And, to go for 10 years, and I know it was on the CW, a rating-starved network, and they needed Smallville. Smallville was really the only thing people were tuning into until they found a solution to that problem with the Vampire Diaries, right? But ultimately, Smallville was a great show. And when you saw what Tom was doing from week to week, and I compare it to like the original Star Trek, where they made those actors do different things. Sometimes they'd be controlled by an alien, and you had that. And it was an amazing cast, but Tom Welling is an amazing Clark Kent. And I think he liked the idea that Alan Miles had, that he wouldn't wear the costume, but this is the story of how he becomes Superman. And this is the slow burn, character-driven story. His friendship with Lex, his dynamic with Liefeld. Liefeld? Who's Liefeld? His dynamic with Lionel. His dynamic with Jonathan and Martha and Chloe and Lorna. There was different dynamics. This is what made Smallville so beautiful. The character dynamics were as beautiful as the superhero action. You had the best of both worlds. And I'll keep on saying this till I'm blue in the face. And I'm kind of brown and tan, so that's impossible. But Smallville earned everything it did. So in the early seasons, it was all about Clark's character-driven journey. It was all about his dynamic with Lex and Lionel and Jonathan and Martha. But slowly, as the show got older, they made it more superhero-y. They made it a little bit darker, a little bit more interesting. And everything this show did was earned. You couldn't do that now. I think if you rebooted Smallville, and this is why my idea, Smallville Metropolis, is very different, very action-packed and more superhero-based, because you need to these days. People's attention is very, very flippant, let's say. Now, when I watched Smallville, it never bored me. I found the first season very charming, very interesting. The early relationship between Clark and Lex, Clark and Lorna and his parents and all of that was fascinating, charming and fabulous. But this generation are not going to sit there and watch that. And that's a shame. I hear a lot of people who kind of jumped into Smallville with the final 3 seasons say, oh, I don't like the early seasons, they're boring. They're not boring. They're not. If you like character dynamics and if you like slow burn stories, it's beautiful. And what Tom gave us every week was not just 100%, was brilliant acting. And he made sure we saw that articulated within his performance. And he's definitely up there with Christopher Reeve. I love Henry, I love Brandon. But I think Tom and Chris are definitely my favourite versions of the character.